Hi everyone, how are you doing? Today I've got somebody that's very special for our community, Mr. Benny Greb. Here it is. Thank you so much for being here with me. I gotta tell a little story before we start. Benny has just released a very interesting book, and I mean it because it has something very particular. It is in Spanish. So I instantly got a copy of that book and I read it and I was very interested and I wanted to talk to him about a lot of things. Now, we've known each other for a little bit of time because I did a reaction with one of his videos and I asked him for an interview and I asked you to ask some questions for him. So here we are, and now I've got the first question for you, Benny. Why Spanish? That's very interesting, very curious.
Well, why not? I mean, the thing is, I realized that, of course, the Spanish-speaking audience is a big demographic. And also, I've had the fortune before the pandemic to do a tour in South America. And I've been also to Spain a couple of times. And I realized there are a couple of fans there that really dig what I do. And some of them said that they don't have access to the material sometimes as they would like to. So I really just wanted to give my Spanish audience some love.
Yeah, thank you so much. We really appreciate it and it's really useful. I need to talk a little bit about your book because it's written in Spanish. There's a very important reason for that. The book is not 100 Grooves by Benny Greb. This is not what the book is about, okay? This book, and now I'm talking from my perspective, is a book of wisdom, and actually I think that whoever reads this book is going to get something good. It has a lot of interesting concepts inside, not only about how to play, but how to feel better, how to express yourself better. A lot of very interesting ideas that you have created along your whole lifetime.
Yes, it started with me being frustrated with a couple of things and then testing it on students and then trying to explain it better. The best description probably is that it's really a practice plan maker. It really is not a book what to practice, because there's so much material out there of like, do this, do that, here's a new lick. And we all have a lot of that already. It's almost too much sometimes, you could say. And this book is a how to practice. After you have this input, what do you do with it?
Yeah.
How do you deal with it, and how do you make that manifest in your playing? It's a subject that interested me for almost 20 years. I think I found a couple of things that are really helpful, definitely for me and a lot of my students, and now everyone can check them out.
Now there's something that really got my attention, and that's something that you call the EPM system.
Yes, sure. It's basically EPM, short for Effective Practicing for Musicians, EPM System. It's basically the whole thing, which deals in 3 levels. It's like a video game, so to speak. The first level is get introduced to these EPM principles. For example, like how to deal and how to fall in love with discipline, how to get a better time management going. So to take away all the things that make it harder to make progress. Go through all these principles and people can already try to apply them in their everyday lives and think about them. Then there are some tools for practicing that help. A way to, first of all, get to know how you actually practicing and cut away the bullshit and really look at what's going on. And then second level, it's a preparation how to put up what I call the big 3. The first is like, where are you right now? Get an honest assessment of what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what is most important right now, basically. Then we have, where do you want to go? The why. This is where usually the motivation comes from. It's like, this is where you want to go. This is why the hard work pays off. If you don't know the why, then why even do it? So there has to be something juicy and nice that you want to get to. And then if you know where you are and where you want to go, then you just have to define the next step, which is hopefully on that line and not somewhere else.
Of course.
And this makes basically all the difference. The third and last level is how to actually do that then. There are some tips in how to, some troubleshooting, some pitfalls that you might fall into, and just a lot of encouragement to keep going and how to actually do it. I mean, I can't tell you, like, the feedback has been so amazing. The guitarist of Megadeth, for example, wrote me an email and stuff and said like, yeah, cool book, and I checked it out. And it's really amazing to see that this stuff that I've been cooking up is now influencing people and helping people, and that's what it's all about.
Yes, it is. Now, you have just talked about motivation. If I had to ask you, in order to get a short answer, how to be motivated? This is one of the questions that has popped when I asked the whole audience about what should I ask you. How to be motivated? How does Benny Greb stay motivated all day long, or maybe not all day long, but how do you do that, man?
There is a wonderful quote that I once read which said, "You never really lose motivation, you only lose sight of what you really want." And this is very close to it, but there are actually two things that can go wrong with motivation. The first one is you don't have a connection to why you're doing it. Because when the going gets tough and when it sometimes is maybe a little bit boring, it's a little bit frustrating, then this why question pops up. And this why question always has to have more weight than the actual struggle you're going through right now. So the more weight and the more clarity you put on this why, the more you can go through difficulties. You put more weight on this with more clarity. So the more you say, like, what would it feel like if I would have accomplished that already? Let's say the beautiful double stroke roll, or certain mastery on the kit, or not being nervous anymore before going on stage, or blasting double bass like this wonderful bearded Spanish guy, you know, like whatever it might be. The more clear you have that, then it's like, you know what, why not sit an afternoon there and check some stuff out. So that's the first thing, to really make it super clear, to write it down and stuff like that. Then to work on it every once in a while so you feel progress, because when you show yourself your progress constantly, motivation is not that hard anymore. If you realize, oh, I really want this and I'm just getting better and better at it, it pulls you instead of like you have to kind of push it forward. And the last thing that's very important for motivation is that you are certain that what you're doing right now really gets you there. Because sometimes we might be clear about what we want and we might want to put some work in, but when we're not sure that this actually helps this, then... But it's all about this connection of what do you want and how do you get there. There's a lot of stuff in the book about this, but this is what I can say in a short time.
Yes, there is a lot. You actually think a lot about what you do. You know, I feel like a robot. Whenever I'm playing, I'm just practicing, but I love your approach because there's something else, man. When I read your book, there are a lot of quotes from different artists. You really love art. You seem like a man that really, you know, ties everything together. You could be reading a novel and actually getting something good out of it, and then applying that to the drumming, and that's so cool, man. That's so cool. And probably that's why the book has so many important information, so much knowledge inside, you know. Now I got one question. As I said, there is a lot of information, but if you had to give me, El Estepario, one tip out of the book, out of everything, one tip that someone like every single drummer could apply today, your favorite one, could you give us one tip?
Sure. It's difficult with you because you're a badass already. So, but,
no, please don't say that.
But yeah, sure. I mean, and honestly, this is something I do every once in a while too, and it's very humbling. I usually do it in secret and in quiet. No one ever finds out about it. But it's great to use a recording device to just record a practice session of yours. In the EPM system in the book, we use recording in 3 different ways. We do snapshot recordings. We do a beginning and an end. So we have a before and after thing. That's very elaborate and that's very nice. But a great starting point is to really just say, like, you know what? You have half an hour of practicing, record that half hour and then listen back to it. And maybe write down what you actually did. Write out what amount of time, maybe with a stopwatch, you actually practice. And what times were water drinking, phone checking, playing something else, right? Like how much did you do what you wanted to do? This is very humbling. And everyone can do that right away to really find out, it's like, oh, this is what I'm actually doing. But the great thing is that it does so many things. The first is when people say, like, I don't have enough time to practice. Most people then realize, like, wow, I don't practice all the time I'm practicing. Maybe I should make it more efficient the way I'm practicing. Maybe I don't need that much time. Maybe I make much more progress in the time that I have. Another thing that they realize is, oh, I don't make much progress in what I'm practicing. When you don't spend the time, that's already a hint. But the other one is a student of mine, for example. I said, you know what? Don't change anything about your practicing. Just record your practicing now every day till next week. And what he found out is that he did something completely different every day. And then you don't have this effect, this bricklayer effect of like constantly kind of making progress. So this is something everyone can do right away. And the book kind of makes it more specific from there, I would say.
Yes, it's a very good perspective, the laying bricks. That's exactly what we are doing while we're practicing. It's like building a house, but the bricks must be laid on a certain order. You cannot put one here, one there. It does not make sense. If you're trying to make your practice better, then you should actually know what you're practicing and why you're practicing. And that's something that you really explain inside of this book, and I appreciate it, man. Now, one question that I've received from all the audience. The question is, must have tools for practice. What would you consider
Yes.
your, I don't know, your starter pack for practicing?
It's a great question because I think I would take all the help we can get. I think practicing is hard enough. It's great to have things that help us with it and make it easier to get into it, make it easier to measure progress, make it easier to remember what we did last time. So all these things. And there are a couple of very simple things that are better suited than our brain to do that stuff. One thing is simple journal. I have it somewhere here. It's just a simple, like a paper journal where I write down the date, write down what I've done today, and it helps me to save a lot of time. When I go into the practice room and I start up, back in the day before I had that, I just started to play, to warm up, and to get inspired because I'm an artist. I need to get inspired.
Yeah.
So I needed to play a little bit. And then the hour was over and I'm like, oh, damn it. I really can fly away very well. I have this attention thingy. I just go wherever. Now, if I'm really limited in time, I open this thing up. I know immediately which tempo I did the exercise last time. I know immediately what I did. I know immediately where I stopped last time, so I can get into it way, way faster. It's simple as heck, but it's super effective. The other is to do before and after recordings. So get a little portable recording device and just compare from last week to now, or like I said before, analyze what you're actually doing in the practice room to listen to how you're sounding. We're musicians. We're dealing with this sense. So we have to record stuff. We have to listen back to it. Because again, while doing it, it has a very different feeling than while only listening to it. And what we do to the audience is we leave them then with the feeling of just listening to it, while we maybe think, oh, it's very intense because it feels intense. But when the listener doesn't have that experience that we're sweating and we're working hard, it might not have the same effect. So it's important to stay in contact to that and also to measure your progress. And another one, very simple, the third one, is a timer. Many of my students and myself thought it stresses you out. When you have a timer, it's like, oh, like working against the clock. But it's actually the opposite. When you have a timer, for me, it's like I set it, forget it, and I can actually dream away and meditate, just do something on the pad or repeat an exercise. When that thing wakes me up, like, oh, and I don't have to check the clock and be like, oh, how long have I done? I decide in the beginning, how long do I want to do what I want to do, set the timer, and then I have all the CPU available, all the gray cells on what I'm doing. Instead of thinking, oh, maybe I should, maybe there's something else I should, maybe I should check the time. So I really, it really focuses all my energies much better on one point. So these are just 3 things, very simple, very inexpensive, that everyone can use.
Yes, no, but I actually agree with you on everything, especially when it comes down to recording yourself. I gotta say that I started recording videos for Instagram like 2 or 3 years ago, and I've never ever in my whole life improved that much in that very little time just by recording. It's so important that I cannot even express it with words. The amount of practice that you need less in order to produce more. You're able to see, to listen, everything that you're playing, the dynamics, and it's exactly what you were talking about. It's not the same playing. You don't get the same feeling that you get when you're watching yourself play. It's totally different, and it actually helped me a lot. So thank you for mentioning that, because it's so important. But now there's something else that I gotta ask. I can imagine that right now you are a very, very busy man. I don't know if you've got a lot of time to practice right now, or you have to schedule everything because you don't have, that amount of time that you maybe used to have when you were 18, 20 years old.
I'm pretty busy. I'm a dad. I have a lot of things apart from the drumming now that I also do. I definitely have less time for practicing. I mean, when I was studying music and single and not a parent, then I was just like, this is the thing. It was a great time, but it was still very inefficient. I had more time to practice. See, efficiency comes in the moment when you have limited resources.
Yes, right? That's it. Exactly.
When you have unlimited time, then you can waste some. But now I don't have much time to waste, so I really have to be very, very deliberate with my practicing. And through what I explained in the book, I can honestly say I did have more time to practicing back in the day, but I know, because I wrote it out, I do the journaling, I know in the last 24 years actually, what I did, how long, on what day, in which tempo, and everything. Like I have it all in these little journals. So I know by a fact that I can now get more done in 10 minutes than I used to get done in 2 hours. Yes, I have less time to practice, but I'm way better at it. Actually, I enjoy it more because I used to be a very strict asshole to myself as a boss because I thought that's what I need to make progress.
Yeah.
And now I'm better at treating myself as a friend that I'm responsible for helping. I always thought I would make less progress than I need a certain amount of stress or pressure. But the good news is that it's not necessary. If you do it nicely and if you can be nice to yourself and still enjoy a lot of progress. So
Yeah.
I'm pretty happy where I am right now with my practicing.
Yes, that's so good, man. But it's actually something very important. When you have a lot of time, of course, you don't need to worry about efficiency, but actually you should. You know, this I don't mean to say that this book is not going to be worth it if you have plenty of time. I have plenty of time. I spend all day long practicing, and even though you are going to spend the whole day practicing, you could even do it better. Efficiency turns into better results in less time. Turning your practice into something efficient is good. It doesn't matter if you have 30 minutes or 8 hours. Now that I know that you don't have that amount of time nowadays, I would like to ask you, do you find yourself practicing sometimes without a drum kit? How would you practice without a drum kit?
Yeah, it's super important. Something that I came up with mainly while traveling. When I first did like an analysis of my time, I realized that a lot of my time went to travel and waiting and backstage and in hotels and stuff like that. So on the one side, I found that out, that I have a lot of dead time, so to speak. And on the other side, I thought like I want to become better at technique, or I want to check this out or that out. There is a lot of stuff that we can do away from the instrument. I would even argue that there are a couple of things that are better to be practiced without an instrument. Everything that doesn't really involve the physical aspect of it is amazing to isolate from that. And the other way around. Everything that's purely physical is sometimes good to really isolate. Because what happens very often is that we as drummers, we always blame our technique for everything.
Yeah.
So when we cannot express ourselves and something doesn't work, we think like, oh, stupid hands, or oh, stupid. Our hands are sometimes like a translator, where when we don't tell them exactly and specifically what we want, they're like, what should I do? Like, you don't know what. So it's a little bit like something is lost in translation there.
Yes.
And every time that I nowadays really get frustrated about my technique, I try to clap it with a quarter note chit or something. I then really find out, I wasn't really clear where that should go. I wasn't really clear how I want this. I couldn't tell my hands or my feet exactly with a clear vision where that should go. And this is stuff that you can do at a train station, at an airport, in a hotel, wonderfully. The whole language of drumming stuff, the whole repertoire stuff of where things are placed, click training of any kind, tempo stuff, it's beautiful without an instrument.
Okay, Benny, and now the most important thing, we've talked a lot about the book, but the first thing that you should say, probably this should have been the first question. Where can someone get this book?
It's very simple. It's bennygreb.com, to the shop. You will see a picture of this book, and then we ship. There's free shipping worldwide, so just click on it. The description is even in Spanish, and then it will arrive at your doorstep.
Okay, very nice. I gotta say that once I read it, I realized that the translation is very good. It's brilliant. I know English, I know Spanish, and this is great, man. There's not a single word that has been misplaced. I highly recommend the book, and also I would like to say that the book is full of different and very interesting ways of explaining concepts. There are even drawings. There are a lot of drawings, man. There are quotes. There are a lot of materials that you can actually use to understand the ideas that he's trying to translate to you, okay? So, thank you so much for being here with me today, Benny. I really appreciate it. And you solved all of my questions. You solved all of my audience questions, and probably your audience too. We talked about motivation, how to stay motivated, discipline, about the EPM system. We've talked about a lot of different things, and I really appreciate that you are here right now with me, man.
Thank you so much for taking the time. Thanks.
Well, if anyone wants to get this book today, right now, I'm going to leave you the link right here and also down there. Benny, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. See you very soon.
Thanks, man.